Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the Finding Solutions to the Skills Challenge digital event, hosted by the CMI East Midlands and Eastern Regional Board in partnership with the Federation of Small Businesses. My name is Michael, and I am an Events Delivery Manager at CMI, and I'll shortly be handing over to Sarah to begin today's event. If you have any questions at all during the digital event, you can ask them using the live chat box on the right hand of your screen, and we will answer as many as we can during the Q&A. Today's session is being recorded and will be shared with you later today for those of you who have booked to attend. And the event recording will also be available on the CMI website and the CMI YouTube channel. So now over to Sarah Spear, Regional Stakeholder Lead for the CMI East Midlands and Eastern Regional Board, to begin our event.
Oh, thanks very much, Michael, and thanks for joining us today. And I'm joined by Tom as well, who's here from the CMI board as well for the Eastern Regional Region. So so a key concern we know for members of both the CMI and the FSB, and for all organisations in fact, is recruiting and retaining the right teams of people with the right skills. This has become increasingly difficult in recent years. It's been widely acknowledged by government, by professional bodies and employers that the UK is facing a skills shortage. So the most recent Department for Education Employer Skills Survey reported an increase in the number of skills shortage vacancies and has identified gaps in technical, practical skills, people skills and digital skills in sectors ranging from construction through to healthcare. We see this replicated at a global level as well. So we know the World Economic Forum has noted that the economic impact of COVID-19 has made the skills gap broader and the need to close it even more urgent. So we want to discuss some of these issues today and to identify solutions for organisations of all sizes. So I want to bring in our speakers today. So we have Jay Duco, who is the FSB Development Manager for Essex, and David Bell, who is the FSB Regional Chairman for the East of England. So David and Jay, thank you very much for joining us today. So in order to understand the skills shortage and in terms of people's overall work lives, I want to ask you both first, what do jobs and careers look like nowadays? David, do you want to start us off on this one?
Yeah, great question, and good afternoon and welcome everybody. It's an interesting question because I remember being at school when I was at school and we thought about going out into the big wide world, and a career was a place that we started and would be there maybe for 10, 20, 30 years. And, you know, we look at our parents, maybe our grandparents, where they maybe worked for an organisation such as Ford, and they were there for 50 years and they left with their golden watch and, you know, a very proud opportunity to work for such a great organisation. But now when I'm working typically kind of in education, universities, what we're finding is that actually it's not so much a career now, it's a job. There's opportunity to actually join a company, gain knowledge, gain skills, gain expertise. Maybe you stay there 2 or 3 years and now you can actually take the option to go and find another option, another job, another role. And then you can learn new skills and build upon that. So rather than staying in one place for a career long term, we're now seeing people are moving around, and what an opportunity that is to be able to have options and build upon your skill sets and experience lots of different options that are available to you.
Yeah, super. Jay, anything you wanted to add to that?
Thanks, Sarah. It's great to be here today. It's funny, David, what you said about leaving with the golden watch, because I took my children to the museum on Saturday and I said, your great grandma used to work in this chocolate factory and she worked there for 35 years and all she left with was a golden clock in this case. So no pension or anything like that. And it goes to show you within living memory how much the kind of jobs market has changed in that time. I think there are long-term trends, but there are also short-term trends as well. So the long-term trends are absolutely, there's been changes. You know, there's no longer the weekly wage packet in the pub on a Friday. We've seen women entering the workplace on a massive scale in the past 30 years. Short-term, we've had the pandemic and we've had Brexit, and we've seen significant shifts in the labour market once again, with many job candidates prioritising flexibility and kind of quality of life. And yet again, in very recent months, cost of living crisis. How is that going to shape the labour market? How is that going to shape jobs and skills? Are people going to sacrifice flexibility for higher pay, for example? So that kind of remains to be seen. But what's clear there are always going to be changes in the labour market and always changes in terms of jobs and careers.
That's really useful. It gives us a bit of a context of what we're seeing today as well, and that's really useful. So in light of these changes then, how can managers try and recruit people, first of all, with the right skills? Jay, do you want to start on this one?
Sure, and really that's kind of $1 million question, isn't it? And I should start by saying that each employer is very unique in what they need and what they require. The FSB's recent report on scaling up skills tells us that 78% of small firms have struggled to recruit in the last 12 months. So if you do have real recruitment challenges, you're not unique. So the first thing I'd say is don't take it personally. There are wider issues in the market, and very often you do have to look at what's happening within the labour market and not just within your organisation. And that's what organisations such as the FSB and the CMI kind of support you with. I would say that every company has its own kind of unique challenges and strengths. And I think the first thing to accept is that you might not be able to recruit someone with exactly the right skills right away. I always recommend kind of having a think about what's necessary and what can be trained on the job. I was speaking to a business the other day, and he said he recruited somebody who'd been repeatedly bullied and excluded from school. 16-year-old school leaver that he'd recruited. He said within 12 months now, if he could, he would clone him. So traditionally, he would have been marginalized maybe from the workplace, from education. He's now doing an apprenticeship. And it just goes to show you that, you do have to be flexible. And sometimes then that employee is not going to come to the job with all the skills required, but they can build confidence, they can build skills and be trained within the job. I'd suggest another crucial factor within recruitment is to build up a relationship with your local FE colleges, universities, and even schools. FSB research shows around 15% of firms engage with FE colleges, and I think that's too low because they can help support businesses in a number of different ways, including careers fairs, apprenticeship advice, free job listings, and many offer support with recruitment and even offering to help businesses draft recruitment adverts as well. So I would check out colleges and universities for support there as well. And the final thing I'd say on this is be creative. I think the old advert in a newspaper and even job listing on Indeed nowadays is quite traditional, and it doesn't necessarily work for your industry. They also cost money. So I'd say to speak to your job centre, be creative, speak to a local university, and even councils who are all able to offer free recruitment support. There are also various schemes for ex-offenders, ex-service people, and people with disabilities. So there is support out there, and I think it's just being creative in how you access that.
Mm-hmm. That's really useful. And I would certainly echo that from the university point of view. So my day job is in Anglia Ruskin University, and we do a lot of work with employers, both within the Faculty of Business and Law, where I'm based in, and also in the Employability Service as well. So I think having that connection helps us as well to make sure that we're providing graduates with the right skills. And I'm sure we'll probably come on to that a little bit more later as well. David, any other tips from you in terms of managers recruiting people with the right skills?
Yeah, I've just picked up on something Jay said. I think it's really interesting that, connecting with educational establishments such as Anglia Ruskin University, but many other options out there as well. But, building relationships with universities, colleges, secondary schools is really, really important. And I would encourage all businesses to consider how that they can support their local community of education, because these students are the next wave of what I call entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs, if they're going to be someone working within an organization, and they're fundamental to the future success of our country as well. So do reach out and do connect. As a STEM ambassador, which is science, technology, engineering and maths, I'm one of 30,000 ambassadors throughout the UK, and I go into schools, colleges and universities and connect those dots quite often. Some are looking for a career path, some are looking to go it alone and set up their own business and venture out and running their own organization. There's so many different paths we can take these days. But I think what's really important as employers and as an FSB member, as a business owner and someone that is regularly meeting with other SMEs, small to medium-sized enterprises, what I hear and what I see is that you shouldn't just be employed on the skills, because it comes down that we can employ somebody and we can teach them those skills. We can put them through various training programs such as apprenticeships, but we can bring them in-house and give them in-house training. They can be mentored by someone within the organization or externally. So sometimes when we are looking to fill that role, we narrow down the search so much because we're trying to tick the boxes too perfectly. Sometimes we need to look at the person, the personality, their ability, and how they can, adapt to a situation. Then we can teach them the skills that they need to be able to do that job. Not everyone's perfect by a long means. So, things take time. And the best way to do that is have someone that can teach you, inform you, and educate you whilst you're on the job and learning as well.
Yeah, that sounds really important. So you're looking for the ability and the potential, not a finished product when you're actually doing that recruitment process. Yeah. So once we've successfully recruited then, so as an employer, the other end is how then do you train the right people to make sure that they're staying within your organisation? David, do you want to go first on this one?
I think once you can find the right person that fits with your business, the culture, and you know that they're going to be a good fit, and you kind of get that certainly through the interview stages, but we've probably all seen someone that's gone through the interview stages. You think they're right, they come along, for some reason they don't fit. But when you do find that right person, the last thing you want them to do is leave. I think we've got to be, mindful now that, as I said at the beginning, that people are not going to stick around for, 10, 15, 20 years these days, because people are always seeking out new opportunity. And it's not all to do with money. People, yes, of course, they want to, be able to live a better lifestyle. So maybe want to see pay rises, and they might move job because they can get paid better elsewhere. So yes, we've got to keep an eye on, making sure they're paid fairly and they're getting rewarded for what they do in the organization. And you're kind of paying, hopefully, if you can afford to, above the market value. But it's not just about the money. Some people just appreciate the ability to have a one-to-one conversation. So having their personal development reviews mean a lot to some, just getting that feedback of what they're doing well, how they can improve what they're doing. So regular conversation, regular contact with your team is super important. I know lots of businesses that fail to do that well or do it at all. And that can have an impact because that member of the team, and I don't like referring to staff as staff because they're part of a team, that they don't feel loved and they don't feel cherished and nurtured, so they will look elsewhere. So regular contact, regular conversation, regular feedback is imperative. Yes, look at what you're paying them, but ask them, what inspires you? What can we do for you? What else would help you? Because they might have other things that might be around childcare. It might be around finishing a little bit early once a week or something like that on a Friday to get home to their family. We all have different things that we want as individuals. It's subjective, so we can't guess what someone wants. The best way is say, what can we do for you? How can we help you? And get their feedback, take it on as well, because sometimes you'll hear things that you don't want to hear. And that's normal, but it's how we react to that, how we deal with it, and how we implement change.
Yeah, so it's considering that whole work-life balance, that more holistic perspective of not just the work itself, but what also how that supports what goes on around it as well. Yeah. Jade, over to you.
I would really second that. I think with the best will in the world, you're not going to be able to recruit somebody to your company and keep them there locked up forever. It's just not going to happen. They are going to go through various stages in their lives, in their careers, and they are going to leave at some point, whether it's taking a retirement or whether they're in the early stages of their career and just want to gain experience in different organizations. So I'd say don't take it personally if people leave the organization very often. But where you are noticing a pattern, I think having a retention strategy in place can be really beneficial to the organization. I think training is something that is essential in all jobs. No matter who you recruit, they're going to require some kind of training within the organization or maybe externally. And providing training shows that you not only support your staff, but it also brings immediate benefits into your business as well. And there's various low-cost options, even free options. If you're attending this today, you are being trained. You're receiving training on how you can recruit, how you can retain staff. So there's various free and low-cost options. I was at an event last week hearing about apprenticeships and some of the higher level apprenticeships up to level 7. You can take apprenticeships to now, I believe. And they can be very low cost for a business. For a small business, it's 95% funded. You may have to pay upwards of around £300 to £500 to recruit an apprentice to allow your staff to take an apprenticeship course, and that even includes senior staff member now doing MBAs. So I'd definitely look into that. I think if you have the training budget, then accredited courses are always going to be the best for quality, for industry recognition. And I think if you've had a staff for quite an amount of time, I would really consider investing in some higher quality training for them and some accredited training. So I think that's the only thing I'd add to it. I'd say that the small things really do make a difference, particularly in sectors where there is a high turnover of staff, particularly in sectors such as care, childcare. Those kind of small things can really make a difference. It can be small tokens, handwritten notes. It's about making sure that staff feel valued. I think if you're able to provide ways for existing employees to gain promotions or extra responsibilities, that can also help to make them feel valued, and it can create pathways for staff to kind of improve on their goals and define their careers within the organisation.
Yeah, so I'm really here for that sort of steering as individuals, understanding their own situation, what they value for their work, and what's going to make them want to stay in the organisation, but appreciating that it is part of a career journey, as you both mentioned at the start as well. Okay, and so we're here sort of representing the CMI and the FSB. What are these organisations and also the government currently doing to help businesses with these challenges? Jade, if you want to start on this.
Yeah, so the FSB exists to lobby government for improvements to all aspects that impact of business and issues that affect small business, and skills is just one of them. And actually, we do quite a lot of work in the skills agenda. And if the government is serious about growth, then it needs to be serious about the skills that we need to achieve it and deliver that. So we produce and deliver research training, create policy suggestions both at a local and national level. For example, our most recent report contains suggestions for including financial incentives for recruiting apprenticeships of small businesses, introducing a Kickstart style disability employment scheme to help get more disabled people into the employment, and also to establish an independent body which looks at current and future labour market trends. We constantly assess also the type of qualifications that are needed by small businesses and how they're serving the labour market. We pass intelligence onto government as well. We sit on a number of local skills boards, as I said, including myself here in the east of England and David too. We sit with local councils, universities, LEPs, and now LSIPs as well. We gather local intelligence and feed it into local policy to make sure the voice of small business is represented at every level of government. And I think what we found is working in partnership is crucial. So working in partnerships with organisations such as CMI and with all the ones that I've mentioned is really, really crucial to tackling the skills. We all have to work together. Even small businesses have to play their part too in helping to feed in information and creating those relationships at a local level.
Yeah, no, that's really useful. And Dave, over to you.
Yeah, I mean, I echo everything Jade has said there, but one of the things I know, it feels like sometimes the government is not on our side as small business owners. You know, it does feel that, things like Brexit haven't helped the scenario of finding the right skill sets and providing the training. But I think there's a lot more to it. We have responsibility of business owners, for our businesses and for our team around us. So as much as, we do feel that we're being stifled at times, great organisations, as Jade has mentioned, like the FSB, the CMI, and many others out there are there to support our businesses to develop and grow and to bring on the right team and allow us to prosper. No one wants to see the decline in small businesses or businesses as a whole. We want to see, the future to look rosy. We want to see what the opportunities look like going forwards. So I suppose one of the things that we need to consider is about how we as businesses can work better, even outside of these organisations. And one of the things I would say is build relationships. Someone asked me once upon a time, I get asked many a time since, what is your top tip for businesses? Or if I'm starting a business or I'm working with an organisation, what would be your top tip? And I say it's all about relationships. Build those relationships. Partner with what might be perceived as your competitors, because your competitors can be your best opportunity to work together. That's how we come across acquisitions and mergers. So really kind of build your network of relationships, whether they are competitors, whether they are suppliers, customers, other organizations. At the end of the day, we're all in this together and we all need to work harder together. And what can government do more for us? Well, I suppose listen to what's happening at grassroots, what's happening out there, what information is being fed back from the agencies, the organisations such as the CMI and the FSB, but really listen to the businesses and what their needs are as well. And if we can do that together, then the future can only be bright. It can only get better for us. And I know sometimes it feels like we're up against every obstruction, every obstacle in our path, but that's what running a business is about sometimes. And together we've got to work through these and come up with great outcomes. And, well, the rest is hopefully history. It will be good.
Excellent. So I think I'll pick up some of the questions that have come through from the audience, if that's okay. So we had a question through from Fraser. So is there anything more that employees can do with the graduate market to develop students for longer term skills planning? And I guess that expands further to what you're saying earlier about working with further education colleges as well. So perhaps David, if you could pick that up.
Yeah, I think we should be doing more working within universities alike. Universities are crying out for support. People that can come in and offer mentorship, guidance, careers guidance. It doesn't have to be a lot of time you give up. It might just be an hour or two per month maximum in some cases. It could be less than that. It might be that they're doing a recruitment fair might be taking place, and you could come along and have a pop-up stand at that recruitment fair. And during that, yes, you're looking for potential opportunity to employ somebody to fill a particular role, but at the same time, you're giving out great advice. You're giving out guidance, and you're steering people to think about maybe how they would interview better, the stuff that they would include on their CV. So for me, it is about going out there, working with what's around you, working with great organisations, being part of great organisations. Join the FSB, join the CMI, join the other organisations like the Chamber of Commerce, the IOG. Doesn't matter what it is, but be part of something bigger. But for me, what can you give back? And what I mean by give back, you're not necessarily going to get paid for it, but it could open some great doors. So supporting those apprentices, supporting those students that want to take the next leap of faith, work placements, short-term work placements as well. I mean, they're always great. You get great skills and you can learn so much from them people coming in.
Yeah, excellent. And I suspect you mentioned earlier about collaboration. It's not just about organisations talking to individuals and potential employees, but also about talking to the different further education and training societies that can provide that, and making sure it is aligned to industry. And there's a need there to make sure that alignment is very close. Okay, Jane, perhaps I could phrase this next one to you. That's more about how we can, and it's from Philip that's placed a question. So, what's the best way of keeping graduates and new employees engaged for longer periods? So we talked about remuneration, but are there other ways we can make sure that we retain their engagement?
I think when you employ a graduate, they're at the very start of their career, and they're going to remember this first employment opportunity for life. And I think from the very beginning, you need to set out kind of good practices within your organisation that create the model for anywhere they go. Like I said earlier, you have to remember that you may not necessarily be able to keep those members of staff. They are graduates. They are going to want to develop their career if they can't grow within your organisation. So I think there does need to be some acceptance there. But what I would say is that even at this level, training is crucial. We hear from employers all the time that it's very difficult to find staff that come out of university with all the skills they're needed for the workplace. So actually, employing graduates can be great. They can be real subject experts. They've had, the latest in education and research. So they're great, and they're a great asset to have within an organisation. But they will require skills training for the specific job that they've been employed to do. So I would look at those early skills gaps. And offer graduates training even at the very early level to enable them to learn well within an organisation, but also to move on to other employment. And I think we need to remember that if all organisations stepped up their skills training and on-the-job training, then the people they recruit later will also have training. So we all have to work together to create a skills culture, I would say, within organisations.
Yeah, absolutely. I think training is very important, and we've got a live message in from, I think it's Green Tea. So how would you go about choosing the most suitable training methods for individuals? So perhaps I'll phrase that on David to answer.
I think training is super important. And as I said earlier, you can bring people in that don't have the necessary skills when you bring them into your team. Then you need to identify what their skills gaps are. So find out, this will come through the interview process, of course, but until you get them into actually in your organization, there's going to be things that you don't know about them. And it's not, you can't find out everything overnight. So it's an ongoing process. But find out firstly, what interests them, what they really want to do, maybe get a bit of a longer understanding of their plan as well. And then you can devise a training program with them. And I think that's really important. You devise it with them, not for them. We know what we want to be able to get them doing over maybe 6 months, 9 months, 12 months and beyond. But if we just write out, here is your training program and this is what you're going to do, it's counterintuitive. What we need to do is sit down with them and say, okay, look, this is what I think was going to work really well. These are the skills that you need to learn. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this? Is there anything that we're missing or anything that you're not sure of or don't understand? And I said earlier, it's all about communication. It's all about kind of having those regular conversations. And I don't mean necessarily, daily, yes, but meeting up with them at certainly once a month. Certainly if they're a trainee and they're coming in to learn new skills, you need to keep on top of that and keep pushing the boundaries, put them outside their comfort zone at times so they learn something above and beyond. But work with them, devise the perfect training program to fit your business and their needs. One thing I will just tag on to pick up something earlier, we talk about incentivizing our team members as well. And I've seen people incentivize saying, for example, you've done a fantastic job, there's a bottle of wine or whatever it might be. But remember, it's very subjective, because if you don't understand who your team is, you don't know what kind of is going to really make the difference. So again, you need to have that conversation with them, because for them, it might be a bottle of champagne means nothing to them. They don't drink. It might be a book voucher is going to be, the wow factor for them, or, come in a bit late tomorrow, don't start until lunchtime. So again, have that conversation with them, find out what they want, and then you will know what them as an individual, and everyone wants to be treated as an individual, not as a number.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's like you say, it's about not just application training, but that personal training for the individual. Yeah, really good. So please do carry on to submit your questions in the live chat, and we'll try and answer them. So please do make a comment there. So Jade, we've had a question in from Sandra. Really, it's about the challenges in particular social care recruitment and retention, and perhaps some of the things we can do about that.
The early part of my career was actually spent in the childcare sector, and I've also had a role where I've scrutinised adult social care, so I'm well aware of the challenges within the sector. And in fact, this is a sector where overheads are very high, and it can be really, really difficult to make a profit in these industries without having the adequate number of staff. They're highly regulated sectors. There's a lot of government regulation, and it's crucial. I think historically it's always been seen as quite a low skilled sector. I think that's changed within the last 10 years. It's become quite highly skilled actually, and it should be, rightly so. But overheads can be very, very high for companies within the care sectors. And I think one of the things I saw in these sectors was some of the most committed, hardworking and lovely people that goes into these type of jobs and careers. They really see it as a vocation. They really want to help people, and they really want to care for people. And actually, I think the work, there's no doubt that the work is hard, the work is long, and people know that when they're going into these type of careers. They know the pay is not great. So I think it really is a vocation for these people. And what we were saying about earlier with the small things, we used to do staff surveys, for example, and one of the things that used to come out very often was they just want to feel valued by their manager. They don't want to come into work in the morning and be looked at in the wrong way. For example, there are low-cost ways that you can make your staff feel valued. I also remember one nursery having kind of an instant rewards basket, which was full of things like face masks and chocolates So if a parent had made a nice comment, or a client had made a comment, they were instantly rewarded, and it's a very low cost way of making staff feel valued. And these kind of things actually really help to build staff morale within the care settings. So I think it is about small things. It's about management attitude, and actually within these sectors as well, a lot of people have come through the sector from working at quite a low level and have never received management training. So I would consider management training as being crucial. It's really important so that managers are aware of how their practices can impact on staff. And a lot of people in this sector don't ever receive management training. So I think it's something that employers should recognise. I'd also think about the demographic of people in this sector. So within childcare, for example, it's a very young female dominated sector. What kind of retention policies, what kind of rewards are going to appeal to them? Possibly not healthcare insurance. That may be within social care, where you've got a slightly older demographic. Think about things like Amazon vouchers. Think about what might appeal to these this age demographic, and actually that kind of applies to all sectors. I'd really think about the demographic of your staff and how you can reward and retain them.
Interesting. Thank you, Jo. So another question that's come in from Tamara, and it's what is the role of AI and IoT in the operations efficiency of a business? So artificial intelligence and Internet of Things. So David, perhaps you could pick that one up.
Yeah, I grabbed this. I mean, my background's 28 years in the technological world. So I've come across, the AI and IoT, which are artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, which is, people are worried about. Let's be honest, people are thinking, is artificial intelligence, is Internet of Things going to take my job? Is this going to mean there's less jobs available to people out there? Because obviously you can teach a computer something once and it can repeat it. It's complementary. And I think this is really crucial to remember, is that, technology is enabling us to do things smoother, quicker, on occasions better. And I'll use that very carefully, because there's lots of skilled work out there where, a craftsman is always going to be better than probably a robot in today's world anyway. So for me, technology is important in any business. That could be, for example, just running your database, your back-end systems, the communications of your organization. But let's look at AI in particular. Going forwards, building cars, for example, they're typically built by robots. If you look at Tesla, their whole factory is automated. But does that mean it doesn't employ people? Of course it does. It employs thousands of people, tens of thousands, but they're just doing different roles to maybe using a spanner. Like once upon a time, they used to put the door on with a spanner or build the engine. It's just done in a different way. That person's now controlling the robot. So it's a different type of skill that's now required. So artificial intelligence is going to be in, if not already, in majority of our businesses in some way, shape or form, from our friend that we might speak to get answers to, and I won't shout it out, otherwise it'll be going wild in my office here, through to simple automated processes that keep us on track. And what it also means is that our business can, if we decide to, run 24/7, 365 days a year, because that process can happen even when you're sleeping, or maybe you're on holiday sitting on a beach or something like that. When we talk about Internet of Things, we're talking about things that are connected. And again, I think you're going to see more and more businesses utilizing Internet of Things. At the moment, we think of things like refrigerators, ovens, lighting, smart devices such as fitness trackers. They're all kind of important, but we will see more connected devices. And that might be when you walk into your office. The lighting comes on, it's connected, it can be controlled and monitored and save energy costs, which at the moment is obviously a subject at the top of all our agendas. How can we reduce costs? So Internet of Things might help us reduce costs. That means we can spend that money more wisely on people. And that can be rewarding them, upskilling them, training them, and hopefully building your business. So yeah, it's a good thing, is what I would say.
And with technology and innovation moving so quickly, do businesses need to be looking further ahead in terms of the type of skills that they're needing? How do they plan for that?
Yeah, I think no one has a crystal ball. We can't see what the future holds, but we have an idea of where we're going, and technology is going to play a bigger part than ever in all of our businesses. And we can't shy away from that. And I think if you're not innovating, if you're not looking at the future, then you're going to be left behind. And sadly, probably the business will possibly won't succeed. So we need to look at what the future holds. We need to look at market trends, what other businesses and organizations are doing. I'm not saying copy, but certainly I use the word swipe and redeploy. Look at what others are doing, which are really good. See how you can utilize those in your businesses. So yeah, look at how you can use technology to make operations smoother, more efficient. And the big thing for me is automated. I talk about automation being a process within our business, but it's not necessarily the first process. We should look at outsourcing and delegating as well. People in your team, can you delegate to someone? Can you outsource to another organization? And if not, can you automate it, is where you want to be at the end of it.
And if I can just add to that as well, actually, I've been speaking to a number of universities that are doing knowledge transfer partnerships where they can come in for quite low cost and advise businesses where they've got challenges and look at things like automation. And I think that's something that businesses can really take advantage of too. Perhaps your main challenge is recruitment, and they're able to look at that issue. They're able to give you a member of staff to look at that exclusively and work with you. So again, universities, education providers are where businesses should be going and seeking further advice on this.
Yeah, right. I look at technology as something that allows us to do more with the same amount of people rather than the same with less people. So I think, like you say, it shouldn't replace anyone. It should just allow us to do more with it.
It's just changed our roles. I think that's the big thing, where, before you'd have someone doing data input and sitting there and typing on a keyboard and rekeying something. Now, obviously, that can be transcribed and put straight into the account system without someone having to sit there. But it doesn't mean that particular role has disappeared. It just means they do their role slightly differently. Yeah,
absolutely. Okay, so there's a live question come through from Kay. With some degrees offering placement years, does this provide the necessary skills for starting in the workplace? Perhaps Jade, you could pick up on that.
I mean, it's not going to provide all the skills an individual needs, but it's going to be a start. I've got a daughter, she's at university. I'm encouraging her to take a placement year. I think it's suitable for a lot of degrees, actually. You can do a placement year. And I think what it teaches young people is it gives them more of an indication of what they like doing, what they want to do. And I think it can be really valuable to both employers who get to potentially poach a new graduate once they've graduated. Many staff will stay within their placement companies, but it also gives students coming out of university a good indication of what they like doing, what they want to do, and also to gain skills on the job. So yeah, I'm in favour of them.
Yeah, certainly. I did a sandwich year, and it really gave me a good focus for that final year of my degree. So I'd certainly recommend it. Okay, and another live chat that's coming from Stuart. So, having worked in large and small organisations, I think that small companies would advertise and perhaps consider changing their culture to maximise the strengths and benefits of working for small companies. So, question there about the culture of companies and perhaps changing their ways. So, David, perhaps I'll pick up with you first, and then come to you afterwards, Jade.
Very interesting question there, Stuart, and one that probably could have a session debating and conversation around anyway. Changing culture, I mean, can you change the culture of your business or your organization? And the question is, should you change your culture to suit someone that's joining your organization? It's a really awkward one, because I'd probably say you're not going to be able to change your culture to suit somebody that's coming to your business. What you're going to do is hopefully you're going to encourage the people that want to come and work for you, because you've got the right culture. You've got the right people. We all know if you build a really good team, you build a really good culture, then people will come and ask you, have you got a job going? I want to come and work for you because it sounds like a fantastic place to work for. My friend or my colleague has said you are the company to work for. Where if you don't breed that from the outset, then you're the one having to go out there and find, through advertising. So for me, build the team that you've got, develop the culture internally, and then those people that are really seeking out employment will come to you and ask if there's any particular roles going. I don't know if you can change a culture. Well, you can change culture, but I don't think it's something you can change for an individual to come and join your team. I think you build your team, the culture develops, and then people want to come in from the outside.
Yeah, and I think that for small businesses, they're not great at advertising what's great about them. They're so focused on doing the work and the business that they're kind of engaged in. They're not thinking about some of the more holistic attitudes. So we know that through the pandemic, small businesses, for example, played a huge role in volunteering and doing community work. They may not necessarily think that would be a factor in recruitment. But actually, we know a lot among millennials and Gen Z that they are really interested in organizations that take a community approach and are doing community work. So I would really actually think about the great aspects of your company and how you can kind of loop that into your recruitment processes as well. It's not only that small businesses, we know a lot of research has shown that small businesses can be far more flexible. I speak to businesses who have adopted 4-day a week working, for example, that have more flexible employment practices. And actually, some local authorities are now doing accreditations on this as well. That can be a really good way for businesses to speak about their culture, advertise how good they are. They're kind of a good business accredited employer. So I'd look out for the work that's being done by your local authorities as well. Good Business Charter is another example of good business practices. These things do actually make a difference to recruitment. You've probably got it in your culture, but you're just not talking about it. So have a think.
Yeah, really interesting. So Sarah, I'll bring you back in at this point. So I don't know if you've got any further questions that you've
Yeah.
got
A couple of questions here around volunteer recruitment. So you started talking about organisations and the volunteering work they do in the community. How about translating this into actually recruiting volunteers for third sector organisations? Have you got any tips for them on how they sort of can increase the recruitment and to, again, recruit the people with the right skills?
I could probably pick up on slight, and I know Jay will probably be able to follow on as well. I think, you know, in the third sector, you know, whatever that business looks like, I know it's still a business at the end of the day. It just works in a slightly different way. You're looking for volunteers to come on board, and again, it's about the culture, about what it is that you do, what it is that you stand for, what it is that you're trying to achieve. And there's lots of people who are willing to volunteer, as Jay said. You know, during the pandemic, there was people out there volunteering in hospitals, you know, helping at the various COVID stations and stuff like that. People are willing to volunteer, but they're only going to volunteer for something that's going to, you know, something of good, something that's one close to their heart, their beliefs. So for me, if you are a charity or a third sector, an organisation where you want to encourage volunteers and you're not paying them for that particular role, one, they're not doing it for the money, but they're going to do it because they know there's a good to come from it. So you've got to kind of shout out, you know, you've got to boast a little bit. You know, we're great because of X, Y, and Z. Come and help us to help more people, or whatever that looks like. And you still got to reward them. But that reward can just be with a big thank you. That reward can be you buy them a coffee. That reward can be you buy a chocolate bar or a box of biscuits. It doesn't matter what it is. It's the small things that make the big difference. So to recruit the right people, you're not going to get everybody. I don't think you can go out there and necessarily pinpoint exactly who you want, but you can invite people. Look, come on, help us, you know, to help, you know, the organisation, to help the community around. So I think sometimes you just got to go out there and ask the people that you know will probably want to do it for the right reasons. I don't think you can force anybody to volunteer. They've got to want to do it for the right reasons.
Yeah, thank you. That was a question from Francesca as well. Thank you, Francesca, for putting the comment around that. Another question we had was, how about degree apprenticeships? So what are your thoughts on degree apprenticeships as one of the possible solutions to the skills shortages?
I didn't really know much about this, but I've been re-educated recently after spending some time with the university. I think it's a great idea, to be perfectly honest. It's a way of young people or people wanting to change their career, for example, a way of them accessing education. It's great for businesses. And I think the wider range of qualifications, of courses, of skills, of training that is available, the more flexibility within that, the more people that you're going to have that's going to adopt them, and that can only be a good thing.
Yeah, super. I think the last question I've got here, unless anyone else submitted one at the end, I think is from Catherine. So how about the training methods themselves? So is there ways that we can upskill our actual training methods in terms of getting people better trained for the roles we're recruiting them for?
Yes, is the ultimate answer. I mean, there's lots of ways of, putting together the training methods. Firstly, what can you do in-house? That's obviously going to be when you brought on a new member of the team or your current team as well, obviously upskilling them. What can you deliver in-house? So kind of cross-training between departments is always an interesting one. Allow people to see what happens in other areas, let them understand. And, even using your own team to train, the team is always good. So that's the first thing. What can you do internally, which is quite low cost? But of course, then you can look outside and look at organizations that can provide training. But that tends to come, if you're going to bring on an organization to come in and do some internal training, that can come with a cost. But, where I'm going with this, you can reach out to the likes of organizations such as the FSB, the CMI, who have got so much valuable information in their portfolios. From an FSB point of view, and I'm sure the CMI had, well, I know the CMI had something very similar, but like a vault, and you can go in there and there's all sorts of training programs and videos and information that you can take away and then you can implement in the workplace. And that's very cost-effective training. Has to be typically delivered internally, but there's a lot of great stuff virtually as well now, training programs that are available online. So I would look at what you can do internally amongst your team. Even maybe I call it a show and tell. If you remember when we was at school, well, it was for me, but you'd stand up and you'd talk about what happened at the weekend and your favorite time. So what could you do internally? I'm not saying they come in and talk about their weekend, but what could they share? That knowledge exchange that Drage was referring to that's happening in the likes of universities. Well, that can happen in your workplace. What knowledge exchange can you do in your workplace by the people that are there? How can you kind of cross-train that information to somebody else so they learn a little bit more about your role and they learn a little bit more about what that skill entails? And that's, for me, is a really important way of building culture within a business as well.
Yeah, my advice to business owners is don't forget to train yourself as well. If you're managing staff, you've never taken management training, consider management training, attend events like this where you can understand more about the skills landscape and get some top tips on recruitment and retention. Some of the best training I've done have just been day courses. So yeah, I think they can be really valuable, and business owners should also always be aware of their own training needs too.
Yeah, absolutely. And the government had the Help to Grow management programme out recently that's been sort of delivered out across the business schools, including Anglo Ruskin as well. So that absolutely taps into that as well. And it's, I suppose, the attitude towards training. So not seeing it as something that you can do when you find the time, because you'll never find the time. All businesses, everyone's busy, and actually it's a real investment into your own future and that of the organisation.
And also a skills audit. Consider doing a skills audit for everybody within your organisation. You'd be surprised about the skills that your staff have that you had no idea about. You can get some real quirky skills out there that you can find out just by doing a skills audit. So that might be good to introduce within organisations as well.
And that taps into that area of sort of personal growth as well, doesn't it? You were saying about earlier, sort of appreciating people and their individual skills, and actually enabling them to use those skills can actually bring value for them potentially as well within the business. Okay, super. I think that's kind of all the questions we've had. So thanks so much to everyone from the audience for submitting those. And I just want to be able to ask Jade and David now really for your key takeaways. So maybe up to sort of 3 points each that you want everyone to kind of take this in terms of how they can try and find these solutions to the skills challenge. Jade, do you want to go first on this? Your top tips?
Sure. My first one would be to start local. Access local support, like I said earlier, local councils, local schools, local universities, local training providers. Seek out free and low cost advice. My second tip would also be to be creative in all aspects of recruitment and retention. I'd do an audit of your organisation, looking at the cultural aspects, looking at some of the demographics of the people that work for your organisation, and really having a think about what is likely to retain them and also appeal to people that you're trying to bring in to your organisation. And finally, I'd say help to be part of the solution. By retraining, reskilling your staff, you are helping to be part of the solution. Businesses do have a part to play. We all have a part to play. And if we all equally place value on training, then we're all going to equally benefit from it.
That's great. Thank you. And David, your 3 points.
I've probably got more than 3, but I'll try and keep it to 3. Firstly, we talk about, recognizing and reward as well. Look at your team, talk to them, have that conversation. So have that regular contact, have those PDR sessions where you kind of get their feedback, look at what we can do as the managers, as the owners of the business to help them. So listen to what they've got to say. And that's really important, listen to their feedback. Constructive feedback. I don't say negative, constructive, because whatever they feed back to you could be taken as a negative. But actually, if you listen to what they're really telling you, then it's only going to help you make things better for them and for others within the organization. So listen, have regular contact and regular conversations through their PDR, recognize and reward, as I say, and do ask them what reward means to them. Please do that. Don't just kind of give them a bottle of drink, because that might not be a reward to them. That could be kind of the absolute opposite. Build relationships. And that's not just with your team internally, but that's with your stakeholders, your investors, your suppliers, your customers, whoever that is. Relationship building is super key. And then finally, this is number 4, by the way, but finally, soft skills. One of the things we didn't really touch on. We talked about, training. But there's lots of soft skills that we need to learn as individuals as well. And again, find out what individuals want. It could be one of the things I'm quite passionate about, but teaching people to present and stand up and speak with confidence. It can be just a very basic soft skill, so they have the confidence to stand up in the audience, or even amongst their own team, to do kind of an update or something like that. So find out what soft skills that we can teach internally, which might not be part of their day-to-day job, but it's going to only enhance them and help them. So yeah, probably 4 or 5 takeaways in that lot.
So we'll let you get away with 4. That's great. And coming from Rob, as you were both talking, saying actually, challenging senior management to also admit their skills gaps. I think that sounds really important too. So, and their own commitment to skills audits. And I guess you would agree with that, Jay, that it should be something across the business and not just restricted to employees, but actually managers as well.
Absolutely. I think, skills gaps audit should be for everybody within an organisation. I think everybody should have to take them. And I think it can be really beneficial if it's done in a constructive way.
Yeah, again, shows that openness in the team. And we had a comment just from Mary-Anne as well. Is there any particular skills or behavioural tests that you might recommend, particularly if you've got candidates without work experience? Is there any things that you've perhaps used, either of you, or tools that you would recommend for recruitment purposes?
Jay, do you want to go first, or shall I pick up on that?
I mean, I haven't. I've got mixed feelings on them. Some organisations say they're great, others say they're not as useful. And I think sometimes we need to redefine what we think will be beneficial to our organisations, because if we're thinking about equality and diversity within our companies, for example, many disabled people might struggle with these kind of psychometric and behavioural tests, for example. So we need to make sure that our positions are accessible, and you can get a lot of support out there, actually, even funding support to employ disabled people. So that would be my caution to that.
Yeah, I think there's lots of, psychometric testing out there. My question would be, and I have used it and I've done it myself, and, when you read it back, you think, well, that's quite accurate. But sometimes I don't think we need them all the time. There's the Gallup one, and I've done the DISC one in the past. There's lots of different ones out there that's all looking at skills, and there's soft skills and hard skills. But sometimes it's just about that relationship building, from that point that you go through the interview process. I think if you've got a good, robust interview process, you can find out a lot at that stage. And it doesn't mean you've got to do one interview and employ somebody. It might take 2 or 3 interviews these days: a video interview, a face-to-face interview, a telephone interview. So I think you can ask a lot of questions. Ask the right questions, you'll start to get the answers. And it's the old saying, people buy people at the end of the day. So, in that organization, is that person right? They might come along with the right skills. They might be perfectly skill matched to what you're looking for, but they might not be the right person to fit within your organization for whatever that reason is. Or they could be a perfect fit as a personality, and they're going to fit really well, but they don't have all the skills. And as we said earlier, you can upscale them, give them that training, give them that knowledge, and use your own team to mentor and look after them.
Yeah, and I've had that as well. So I've delivered both Myers-Briggs and Belbin, and Belbin, for example, you can use it not when you're looking for recruitment, by actually looking at your existing team and seeing maybe where there's gaps within the team, and then that can help you designing things like job descriptions or interview questions. So you're not kind of assessing a candidate as such, but you're thinking about where are the gaps in your own team, what would add value, what could bring some more diversity. So as Jade said as well, you're not necessarily looking for people that fit the mold of what you've got. Actually having a diverse team can bring those benefits. So looking at the skills you've got, where the gaps are, the types of working, the types of different styles you've got, then those kind of tools like Belbin can be useful for that sometimes. So then when you're writing a job description, you're thinking about some of the experience they might bring with them, whether that's from work or whether it's from other aspects of their life that they can bring in as well. To have that kind of diverse team can be the most beneficial as well. Well, that's super. I think I just want to say thank you very much from myself and Tom to Jade and David and to our audience as well for all the questions. That's been a really engaging conversation. So I'm just going to hand back now to Michael from CMI.
Thank you so much, Sarah. What an excellent discussion that was. Thoroughly enjoyable. Thank you. And of course, thank you to our speakers, David and Jade. So of course, that is it for today. And please don't forget, if you are a member of CMI, you can log into Management Direct using the link in the live chat, and you can find a wide range of exclusive and practical development resources and much more. And if you are not yet a member or a subscriber, you can join our community via the link that's also in the live chat to gain full access to our Management Direct portal. And you can also sign up to the free CMI newsletter for the latest trends and tips for managers and leaders. So again, thank you to Sarah, to Tom, to David and Jade, and wishing you a great afternoon. Thank you for joining us.